Thank you, Jacob. Um, we don't record the introductory student talks, and they're often so wonderful. And I really wish that that had been recorded. Um, Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Oh, I have a question about karma, and I don't know. This may tie in or may touch on what Jacob was saying. I'm I've always been interested in that idea of, I mean, as I understand it, in Buddhism, that um, karma the is something that we make, but if we realize that it's just a dream, that it's just an illusion, then it evaporates, then it goes away. Um, and so I guess my question has two parts. One is, could you please correct me if I'm wrong, or kind of elaborate on that idea um, of karma and its and how it goes away. And then secondly, would love to hear um, any. I mean, I'd love to hear your take on kind of the real world application of this idea, how this concept um, applies, how it can apply to our daily lives, sort of seeing past karma and letting it go.
So, karma has many meanings. Did you see this watch? Did I drop it? Did it fall?
Yeah.
That's karma. Cause and effect. Very clear. Okay? So, one meaning of karma is cause and effect. Everything we do causes an effect, and that effect in turn causes other effects. In fact, everything we do causes not just one effect, but many effects. So, this ocean of karma, and we're all part of it. So, that's one way to think of karma as cause and effect. And then another way to think of karma is, and these are actually slightly different meanings. It's the same word, but these are different meanings. Habit mind. So, your habit mind. Like some people like to sleep late and some people like to get up early. That's a habit mind. I used to be a chain smoker. It was a very big habit mind. Also, Jacob, it was very funny when you said you weren't sure if anyone here had taken psychedelics, because I'm looking at the age of most of the people on the screen, and most of us took a lot of psychedelics. But it was a long time ago, way before you were born. So yeah, so these habit minds, this habit mind, these sort of these repetitive patterns that we get into, and they're not unrelated. They're not unrelated because this repetitive habits that is a cause of our actions and therefore a cause of the effects of our actions. So they're not unrelated. But the notion of karma as an individual thing that you own, this person has good karma, this person has bad karma. You know, whenever I talk about karma, I always talk about the Donald Duck comics. And there was, Donald, he's a loser. Everything he does never works out. He always has to be rescued by his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They're always rescuing him because nothing he does works out. But then he has this cousin, and I'm so old, I've forgotten the name of his cousin. But he has this cousin who, this cousin is walking on the street and looks down, and there's like, $100 gold piece, sitting in the street. Not just a penny, but like $100 gold piece. Everything that happens to this cousin is good and wonderful. And so we think of karma in that way. That's a very mistaken way to think about it. It's not that this person has always good luck and this person has always bad luck. That's not really the way to think about it. It's this sort of conflation of cause and effect, and the causes of our actions are these habits that we get into, this sort of habit mind. And by habit, I don't just mean smoking. I mean like the way we think, the way we perceive things. We perceive things according to certain mind habits. Like racism, that's a mind habit. That's all it is. It's a mind habit. And you can just give it up. Then you're not a racist anymore. But no, not Scrooge, Jonathan. Scrooge was the miser. Jonathan thinks it's Scrooge. It wasn't Scrooge. Scrooge is really Scrooge McDuck. He's the one who sits on his money and he won't spend it, and he dives into his money bins and swims around in them. That's a real habit mind that Scrooge McDuck has. Um, anyway, yeah, but so we have all these habit minds that habits of mind that we bring to situations, and that's how we perceive things. No, it's not Gladstone Gander. He's the guy. He's the inventor. Everyone's trying. The videographer could go to my bookcase and find the Donald Duck comics, and maybe he can tell us. Um, anyway, but yeah, so so we have these mind habits, and we're stuck in them. The way we perceive the world is habitual. We perceive in certain ways. Oh, this kind of person is like this. Or this kind of person is like that. This situation is like this. This situation is like that. And then we're blinded by them. That's the importance of don't know. Don't know means, you really don't know. I was talking in an interview with someone, someone today was talking in an interview that this thing, these muons, and they're reacting strangely, and there might be particles that we don't even know what they are. Some other forces that, the standard model of physics doesn't have. And, we really don't know anything. That's right. We really don't know anything. We just don't. And so this don't know, that means when you're looking with these habitual mind patterns, just tell yourself, you actually don't know anything, Oh, that's not really what it's like. Which doesn't mean you replace it with something else, because that's just as bad. I don't know, it really helps me. You said, how do we apply? It really helps me to remind myself, you don't know that. You don't know that. That's not what it's like. Yeah, you think that's what it's like, but that's not what it's like. And then your mind opens, And we often talk about, mind makes karma, no thinking, no karma. That's what that's saying. That's saying if you just completely open, you don't make anything, then your karma disappears. So it's not good karma, bad karma. A lot of people want to, they want to get all the good karma they can so they get into the right kind of, Buddhist heaven or whatever, like kind of thing. And, it's funny, Jacob, when Jacob was talking about how, maybe when you die, everything's wonderful. Well, there are a lot of people believe when you die, everything's horrible unless you're exactly the right kind of person, right? You go to hell and there you are and you're stuck. Well, the good thing about Buddhist heavens and hells is they're always temporary. You might be there for several, kalpas, but eventually you're going to leave. But yeah, so just this don't know mind, then your karma disappears. Then, how in this situation, it becomes very clear. So yeah, so that's my little riff on karma. And thank you for your question. Are there any other questions?
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Wait, I'm not.
yeah, yeah. When are you there?
Okay. So, at the end of the last one-day retreat, somebody mentioned a lot of pain while they were sitting, but that it's really a good thing because then, when we're not on the cushion or in regular life, then it's training us to be able to stay with something or to be able to not let that take over. Um, but I don't know. I mean, there's part of me that, this isn't about training to overcome pain or training to. I mean, can you just touch on like what we're really here for?
We're here to wake up.
Hmm.
But I do want to, I'm glad you brought up the issue of pain, because, Buddha's great question was about suffering. And they're the three marks of existence. And one of them is suffering. suffering, impermanence, and no self. So that's one of the marks of existence. And then there's 5 remembrances. I will get old, I will get sick, I will die, I'm impermanent, and everything that I do has a consequence, the karma thing that Bond was talking about. And so pain you can't, it's always there. It's always there. But to not be controlled by pain. The thing about pain is its function is to be an alarm system. The function of pain is to tell an animal that there is something that we need to do something about. And of course, the problem is that pain will arise when there's nothing we can do about it. And it will also arise when the only cause of it is a kind of weird neurological thing where there's actually no physical cause. That is, there's nothing in the muscles or the bones or anything that you cause the pain, but the mind is creating. And I don't mean the mind like it's imagining. I mean there's a kind of circuit that's set up. It's a physical circuit, but it's within the nervous system. It has nothing to do with anything else, and it's set up, and then it's like the alarm bells are ringing, 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 ringing. Like, I don't know if you heard about, there was some store in Lawrence that someone had thrown an old, I think it was a smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector into a dumpster, and the thing started going off, and they called the bomb squad. They didn't know what it was because there's this, like high-pitched whine. That's what pain is, it's this high-pitched whine. And I have these friends who, one of my closest friends from graduate school, we drifted apart, but we were really close, and she was a young faculty member when I was a graduate student, and she and her husband are working on this sort of AI model of consciousness. They're computer scientists, very famous computer scientists, and the thing that they're working on as sort of a definition of consciousness is pain, and that's very perceptive because, it's the alarm bells going off, And so the question is, are we pushed and pulled by these alarm bells? And I don't mean to minimize pain, because it's, I have friends who suffer from chronic pain, and I don't want to tell them, oh, all you have to do is, and then you won't feel it. That's not the question. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, how do you function? Even when you're in pain, how do you function? And we all are going to have to face that, unless, we die very instantly, very soon. We're all going to have to face some kind of pain that's really difficult and that really takes over. And how do we function in that? And sitting through the lactic acid buildup, which is what it is. When you have pain and then you stand up and it goes away, it's lactic acid buildup. Rebecca's a nurse, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's lactic acid buildup, and you get up and it goes away and it's no problem. So sitting through that is a really valuable thing. It's this not being captured by our like and dislike mind on steroids, because it really hurts. It really, really hurts. And we don't let that affect our actions. And it may take over our minds. And sometimes we're even able to not let it take over our minds. And sometimes no. Sometimes just the alarm bells are ringing, but it's not an alarm. It's fake. There's nothing I need to do about it. And you just sit there. And so that's very helpful when that happens, to just sit through this. And, in our style, when we feel pain, we can get up. In Japanese style, you don't do that. And it's really interesting, when I sit in Japanese style retreats, and sometimes it's really painful. I don't have my nice buckwheat cushion, and I can't move. And it's really hard for me because, I'm spoiled. But it's good. It's good for me to have to do that. And so I encourage people to, when that happens, now sometimes you have a pain, you know that, no, there's something wrong and you need to do something about it. And then you do whatever that is. In our style, that's fine. You just bow, you stand up, with your hands like this or with your hands like this. And you just stand until you need to sit down again. That's fine. That's not a problem. But to not be captured by the alarm bells. That's a wonderful thing if you can do it. And I encourage people in any situation in which pain arises, in which you know that there's nothing you can do about it in that moment, to experience not having it capture your mind completely. Yeah, you're aware of it. It hurts. But it's just, yeah, it hurts. But it doesn't take over your mind. And it's if you can do that, that's a wonderful thing. It's hard. But if you can do that, it's a wonderful thing. But no, you're right, Wenda, that's a side effect. That's one of the many side effects of meditation practice. If you can do that, it's a side effect. And the reason we practice is to wake up to everything, even death, just wake up to everything. That's it. That's what it's about. And it's really hard because we're asleep most of the time. We're just, our thoughts are not with whatever is going on. There's this line in the Temple Rules where it says, when you listen to the Zen teacher talk, don't think I have great understanding, blah, blah, blah. What that means is you're listening to the person talk and you're not thinking about what you're going to say in response, or you're not thinking about how you know better than this person, or you're not thinking of, any kind of context, you're not analyzing it, you're just listening. Just listening. And it's really hard to do because we're always taught to, encouraged to intrude ourselves on any situation. And to not do that, to just be awake and aware in that moment. So that's, we practice to wake up, and of course to wake up and help this world. But that doesn't mean when we sit there we're planning on how we're going to help this world, because then we're not sitting, then we're dreaming again. We're dreaming about all the wonderful things we're going to do because we're so enlightened, right? So if you're awake, then you'll naturally help this world. Someone else was talking this morning about, wanting to help, and you have this idea about, I want to help, and and you want people to be happy. You can see that the people around you are not happy, and you want to make them happy. But the minute that's there, then you can't help because you have an idea of what should happen. So if we have an idea of what should happen, then, we have a problem. But if we're just alert, if we're alert and awake and listening and seeing and perceiving, then that's where we really can help. So so Zen is wake up. That's why we practice. But then there are these other things that, you pick up along the way, like how to sit through pain, which are helpful. Because eventually we'll all be sitting through pain at some point or another. So thank you for your question. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So the Buddhists pointed out that the cause of suffering is desire, anger, and ignorance. Mm-hmm. What does the ignorance part point to? What is that?
That's a good question, because it's something that's often not understood. Ignorance does not mean that you don't know classical Greek. That's not ignorance. Okay? Ignorance is not that you don't know theoretical physics. Ignorance means being ignorant of our true nature. That's ignorance. Not knowing how things are and thinking that we know how things are. So it's ignorance is thinking that you know something. Okay? Yeah. Also, the causes of suffering are desire, anger, and ignorance. So Buddhism is great on these lists. You could always add something, you could always take them away. I mean, they settled on desire, anger, and ignorance. That's a pretty good list. I don't know that I could improve it, but I want to encourage people to take these lists kind of lightly, because you could make up another list somewhere and it would be just as valid. If I was up in my office, I'd grab the Princeton Dictionary of Buddhism and show you the list of lists, which takes up about 30, 40, 50 pages. And there's the ones and the twos and the threes and the fours and the fives, and it gets up to like the hundreds or something like that. So there are all these lists that you can make up, like the 5 hindrances, desire for sleep, desire for food, desire for or maybe they're the 5 desires: sleep, food, money, sex, and fame, which means wanting to be liked. So, okay, those are the 5, but you could come up with another 5, or maybe there'd be an overlap. You come up with 7, you could come up with 2, So take these, with a very large grain of salt. But yeah, desire and anger, ignorance, those are pretty good. And yeah, so ignorance is thinking we know something, basically. That's ignorance. Yeah, ignorance of our true nature. So thank you. Are there any other questions?
Judy, could I ask you about the desire part of that? Because I was thinking about this, like eliminating desire. First of all, it's never going to happen. Second of all, do I really want it to happen? Because that's part of what makes me alive, wanting to do certain things, and maybe I want to see a red cardinal on my bird feeder. It's like I'm not gonna. Do I want to get rid of my desires, even if I could? Which obviously I don't think I could. So that's
Okay, you're breaking up. You're breaking up, Jonathan. Can I answer your? Are you ready for me to answer your question? Because you've kind of broken up. I'll start answering it anyway because you muted yourself. So I guess I can answer. Yeah, so that's a desire for not having desire, right? So that's as bad as desire. So yeah, so it's not desire isn't the problem. Attaching to your desire is the problem. Just like, in the 5 hindrances, sleep is not a problem. Everybody needs to sleep. But attaching to sleep, that's the problem. Everybody has to eat, but attaching to food, that's the problem. I used to actually, when I was very young, I was addicted to food. And if I'd known how to be bulimic, I would have done that. But I would eat compulsively as a way of sort of calming myself down. And really, compulsive, like taking a big tub of ice cream and just going like this and having a thing of chocolate syrup here and taking a spoon of chocolate syrup and a spoon of ice cream. I'd do that until I was so cold from the ice cream and start shivering. So that's called addiction. That's like real serious addiction there. So that's the problem. So the problem isn't, I want to watch a movie. The problem is, I want to watch a movie and you need me to talk to you, but I want to watch this movie, and so I'm not going to pay attention to you. That's the problem. The problem is that you want something so badly that when you're needed somewhere else, you can't respond. That's the problem. The problem is that you want something so badly that it distorts your relationship to, in my case, food, whatever it is. People who compulsively like scroll through their, social media, or people who, you know, compulsively watch TV in the old days when people watch TV or stream or whatever it is. You know, people, it's this compulsion. The compulsion is the problem. So it's not, yeah, let's go watch a movie, or hey, I feel like a piece of chocolate cake. Oh, and I'm in the Merc and there's a piece of chocolate cake. Let me put it in my cart. That's not a problem. The problem is when you go through your day thinking, I've got to have that piece of chocolate cake. Oh my God, what if they're sold out of the chocolate cake? What if I can't get the chocolate cake? That's the problem. Does that make sense? Yeah. So yeah, everybody has, you know, wants things at times. Like, what do you want for breakfast? So I think I'll have an egg. Okay, not a problem, you know. But if there's no egg and you fall apart because you wanted an egg for breakfast, God damn it, and there's no egg there and you're gonna fall apart, that's the problem. Okay? Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Josh, unmute yourself, please.
I'm a little unsure how to phrase the question, so forgive me that. But it seems like there's a lot of dialogue around reacting and
Mm-hmm.
kind of um, how to work with experiences or phenomena kind of as they come to you. But what about acting? I'm sorry that I don't have a better way to ask that, and if it's not a clear question, that's okay too. I might
No,
need
that's yeah. So acting and reacting, that's setting up a dualism. That's not that maybe not that helpful. So reacting is a form of acting. And we don't mean acting like, you know, on a stage. You're talking about action. You know, action and reaction. So when you're reacting to something, that's a form of action. And when you take some action, it's in a context. So in some sense, it's a reaction. So suppose you have to look for a job. So you don't wait for the job to come to you. I mean, there are a few people who are lucky that when they need a job, out of the blue, somebody calls and, you know, says, do you want to take this job? And it's like, oh, how nice. Never happened to me. I've occasionally heard about it, but it never happened to me personally. I doubt if there's anyone I know personally that it's happened to, but occasionally it happens. But usually it's like, okay, I need a job, so you do whatever it is to, you know, you network, you go online to whatever sites there are, you know, you ask people, maybe you look in the newspaper, that's very old fashioned, you know, whatever it takes, you know, you put your resume out there on LinkedIn. I don't know how to do it. I haven't done it in like 50 years, but you know, whatever it takes, you just do that. So is that an action or is that a reaction? I don't know. But it's like, okay, I need a job. Here's how to get a job. I'll do everything I can to get a job. And then if you're lucky, you get a job. So does that answer your question? I can't see you because the light. Oh, okay. It answers your question. Okay, great. Thank you. Boy, my answers are so short today. This is not like me. It's kind of good. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
The question kind of back with the karma.
Uh-huh.
Talk about getting stuck with something and holding on to it. But sometimes when I with the you know, your karma disappears or however that was, you know, you have a don't know, and then you see this. But I think that I kind of get stuck with thinking, well, you know, you have a bad day or something and you do something that, you know, isn't the smartest thing, but you did it, you know, and then that causes a cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then from that action, another action happens. Then maybe you could go back and say, well, if I wasn't in the bad mood and didn't do that, then the action wouldn't have happened, and the reaction wouldn't have happened. But then I think, well, that really is kind of more, so I think, well, then that karma didn't disappear because the effects of that is continuing on. And then I think, well, that's pretty egoist, thinking, oh, gee, I have all this power in the world. Look what I did, and it continues. Wow, that's kind of an ego. Um, but I kind of get caught in that, and so to think that, well, it's disappeared. Well, maybe it hasn't disappeared because the cause and effect is continuing on. So I don't know if you can speak to that of.
So
My misunderstanding on that, perhaps.
understanding, karma is a very ambiguous word, and you drop a pebble in a still pond, and these ripples go out, right? These ripples go out, and then at some point you can't see the ripples anymore. So, are they still there? Were they ever there? So you can get lost in that kind of thinking. You can get really hung up in that. But why do that? So something happens. Nobody ever asks about, I did something really good. And the effects are, nobody ever says, oh, I did something really good and the effects are still going on. Nobody ever sees that as a problem. It's the same situation. It's not any different. So this universe is vast and wide. And everything that happens has consequences. That's true. But when we say your karma disappears, what that means is this habit mind disappears. That these screens that we see the world through, that they disappear. So that's what that means. It doesn't mean that suddenly, if I metaphorically drop the watch, it'll somehow stay up there. That's not what that means. It means just that these habit minds, it's just like, you have these metal gates that are between you and the universe. And you think when you look at these metal gates that you're seeing the universe, but you're actually looking at these metal gates is what you're looking at. And suddenly they drop. And then you can see what's there. So when we say your karma disappears, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about these habitual ways of thinking and seeing that this mind view that we all have. We all have a mind view, and that this thing is what drops away. So that's karma disappearing. But yeah, cause and effect. Cause and effect actually don't exist either. We create them in our minds. We create time and we create space. And if you don't believe me, try to read some. I really recommend. There's a wonderful book about time by what is it? Carlo Rovelli, I think his name is Rovello, called the I can't remember the name of it. The something of time. It's not the passage of time, but anyway, it's this amazing book, and he's a wonderful physicist, and he just talks about all these ideas we have about time, and none of them work. If you follow them out completely, they all run into some kind of contradiction, some kind of problem. And St. Augustine was aware of this too. St. Augustine has a big thing about time and how basically we don't understand it, we make it all up, we don't know what it is. And so even time and space are like that. We have to do that. I mean, that's how we function. Just like we have hands and eyes and noses and legs and everything. And some people have, fewer hands than others. I had a close friend in high school who was born without a hand. In college, who was born without a hand. That's okay. So, and some people's eyes don't work and some people's ears don't work. But we all have like sort of things that, function to get us through this world. And our ideas of time and space are like that. That's how we get through this world. That's how we know how to, get to this retreat. We have to be there at a certain time, right? And be in a certain space, namely where your device is, so you can, get in, right? So time and space are necessary, but we also make them up. We don't really our understanding of them is very limited, and it's very incomplete, and maybe in some sense it's completely false. I mean, Einstein was like, time and space are not, time and space are not two. I remember when Zen Master Sung-san once said, time and he goes, time and space are one. I'm like, he's a Buddhist monk. How does he know that? Like this is the standard XY axis, the time axis and the space axis. But of course, he was going to be an engineer when he was in high school. His idea was to be an engineer. He'd already had calculus and everything like that before he became a Buddhist monk. So yeah, so we have this idea, but these are just our ideas. So yeah, so let your ideas drop. So that's what karma disappearing means. It means that this veil in front of us just drops. It's not there anymore. It'll come back. It always comes back. But we can at least not hold on to it so tightly. Okay? Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, in that case, this is a good time to stop. So interviews will begin again in a few minutes. And thank you, everybody, for your practice.